West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff
It's 8
and Bill
a.m. in the
Show
Mile High City on
News
this
Talk
Wednesday, July
710
2nd, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Colorado's blue, America's red. It all meets right here on the program, where you're invited to be a part of the conversation by giving us a call at 303-696-1971 or texting us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. All right, big hour. Gabe Evans, representative from Congressional District 8, that's the northern part of Denver, Colorado, is going to be joining us to talk the big, beautiful bill as the bill heads back from the House to the Senate, now back to the House. And it has to be approved. And can they get it done by July 4th? And is the bill better? Is it bigger? Is it going to drive up bigger debt? All of that we're going to talk about with Representative Gabe Evans coming up here in about 15 minutes. Now it's time for News and Comment with Mr. Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, News and Comment.
Good morning. Wednesday, 68 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 93 today. News is presented by the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. Now is the time to stand with Israel. Call 800-301-1188. That's 800-301-1188, or go to 710knus.com and click on the big red Stand with Israel banner at the top of the page. Our top story, GOP House lawmakers are rolling up their sleeves and getting to work on the one big, beautiful bill. He got through the Senate Tuesday with VP J.D. Vance casting the tie-breaking vote. But now the House has to take a crack at that version, and some fiscal conservatives have voiced opposition to the bill, of course. Massey, Paul, yada, yada, yada. The president had a great trip to South Florida to see Alligator Alcatraz on Tuesday, the temporary facility for illegal criminals. A lot of lefties don't like it. And almost 15 years ago, Barry Soetoro tried to make little funnies about conservatives wanting to use alligators to help at the border. Great call.
You know, they said we needed to triple the Border Patrol. Or now they're going to say we need to quadruple the Border Patrol.
Yes.
Or they'll want a higher fence.
Yes.
Maybe they'll need a moat. Maybe they want alligators in the moat.
Good idea.
They'll never be satisfied.
Yes, we will.
Yeah, I was going to say, I saw that the Trump administration had 0 releases of illegal immigrants back into America for the second month in a row. 0.
Thank you.
I'm pretty happy.
I think you're satisfied.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, hey, I'll take that every year, every day, every year, every election cycle.
And I understand that's politics.
Yeah. Yes, it is. D.C. Drano posting this morning from Deuteronomy 28. Foreigners who live in your land will gain more and more power. While you gradually lose yours, they'll have money to lend you, but you will have none to lend them. In the end, they will be your rulers. And that's, once again, from Deuteronomy 28. Very, very interesting. About 150 California National Guard troops are being pulled away from L.A. to help fight wildfires. The move comes following a request from the head of the U.S. Northern Command. California Governor Newsom says 47 had caved, and now it was time to send the rest of the troops home. I'm sure President Trump is going to enjoy reading that one from Governor Newsom. The private sector lost 33,000 jobs overall in June. That's according to the monthly report from payroll processor ADP. Most of the jobs lost were professional, education, and health services. One person has been hospitalized after an officer-involved shooting in Montbello last night. It happened in the 4300 block of North Del Rio Court. Police Chief Ron Thomas says the two officers found a group of people in the street with an object used to shoot firework mortars at about 11 o'clock last night, and a man reportedly pulled a gun from his waistband and was shot in the leg. He was taken to the hospital in serious condition. Jury deliberations resumed today in New York for the Sean Diddy Combs sex crimes trial after jurors reached a verdict on 4 of 5 counts on Tuesday. They still need to decide on the top charge of racketeering, which means they must determine whether the embattled rapper took part in criminal enterprise. Paramount, CBS's parent company, they agreed to a $16 million settlement in President Trump's lawsuit over the edited 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Khan, where they edited it to make her look as good as they could. Didn't help. 67 in Aurora, 66 in Arvada, 68 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
A typical way to start July here for Denver in the Front Range. Warm temperatures, partly cloudy skies, and a few thunderstorms. Highs today near 90. A few widely scattered afternoon and evening thunderstorms. Lows tonight near 60. Warming to the low to mid-90s Wednesday. An isolated thunderstorm late. A better chance of thunderstorms, 80s and low 90s Thursday. Upper 80s with a few late-day thunderstorms for the 4th of July Friday. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free, no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. As you know, we drink a lot of coffee. Bill and I, both dads of 4 kids, busy lives, radio show. We got up really early, and we're proud to have with us a new coffee sponsor, Cato's Coffee. Premium coffee, roasted to order, ensuring you get the freshest cup possible. It's also pet and planet friendly, supporting animal welfare and eco-friendly practices. With every purchase, your morning cup contributes to positive change for pets and the environment. Delicious flavor profiles, expertly roasted for smooth, flavorful experience every time. They even got those little K-cup pods that you can get. I just ordered my newest batch of those. If coffee isn't your thing, you can also try their delicious teas. Shop online for coffee as well as merchandise. All of it supports your furry friend. Upgrade your morning ritual with Cato's Coffee. Visit catoscoffee.com. It's spelled Katos, KOFFEE.com. Katos, KOFFEE.com. And we asked for you all to send us some pictures of your dogs, and you did, and our guys over in the production studio over there, Adam and Mark, have put together those pictures online. You can see them if you go to YouTube.
There's Yoda from Mary.
And X. Yeah. Fantastic. Love these pictures. You all are awesome. Thank you so much for sending them in. We sure appreciate the family that's a part of our listening audience. Man,
Look at that. They're so cute.
Cute little dogs.
They're
there.
amazing little dogs. There's so many. They're little terriers, little puffballs. Oh my gosh, is that the Basenji mix? I think that we've got on the screen right now. Yeah, so you've got to go back and watch the video. All sorts of wonderful doggos that y'all shared with us. I know that's a lab mix. I was talking to the person, the black one that's on there right now. That's so cute. Oh, that's a Chorky that we've got on the screen right now. That's like a huge personality. That's a dog that thinks it's 150 pounds. Oh, there's a little puggo. Yeah, you got to see these things.
So
They're
Cato's
adorable dogs.
Coffee, and if you. Paul McCartney.
I know. Oh, and that's Riley on the right. If you see the Paul McCartney picture, Riley on the right, that is Mark Crowley's dog. And he generated that with AI, and it's because the English sheepdog is Martha, who's Paul McCartney's dog, and Riley's mother is an English sheepdog. So the idea that there's a lineage thing there. So that's a wonderful picture.
So if
that
you
is so
use
cool.
the code Jeff and Bill 10 at checkout, you get a 10% discount. Go to catoscoffee.com. KATOSKOFFEE.com. All right. Now we get the chance to make some news, Bill. Joining us now is the congressman from the 8th Congressional District. That's the northern part of Denver, Gabe Evans. Congressman, thank you for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah, always good to be on with y'all.
So big news coming out of Washington, D.C. We saw that the big, beautiful bill passing both the House. Now the Senate on its way back to the House. But questions as to whether or not Republicans still support it. Will you be supporting the updated, changed, big, beautiful bill?
Well, we're going to be voting on that later today, so I guess you'll just have to stay tuned and see how I vote on that. But, here's what this bill does, and these are things we've talked about over and over and over again. Secures the border. No tax on tips. No tax on overtime. This puts, in Colorado, about $2,000 in hard money back into the pockets of your average working family of four. This thing increases tax exemptions for the bottom 85% of wage earners. And then in terms of, actual, just overall, wage growth, purchasing power, because there's a lot of other stuff in this bill, we're talking somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 in just more purchasing power for your average working family of four in Colorado. So border security, lowering the cost of living, more money back in people's pockets. This thing is a win.
That's Representative Gabe Evans from Congressional District 8. Now, were there any changes made on the Senate side that gives you pause with regards to supporting the big, beautiful bill?
Oh, we're still going through this thing. They always say the hallmark of a good negotiation is everybody didn't get all of the things that they wanted. That's how you know that this probably landed in a good spot. So it's Congress, right? As the old joke goes, this place would run great if everybody did what I said. The problem is there's 434 other members of the House and then 100 senators that all think the same thing. But no, again, this bill does the things that we just went through. This is something that's going to lower costs of living, make everyday life safer for people. This is going to take care of our military. This is something, and then it's going to be more efficient with the taxpayer money. We're talking about getting illegal immigrants off of Medicaid. We saw the headline from the Denver Post, I think it came out yesterday, where Colorado is suing the federal government to not turn over health care data to the federal government because they're afraid it might be used for immigration enforcement. Well, why would they be worried about that unless if there were illegal immigrants getting taxpayer-funded Medicaid?
That's Gabe Evans, Congressman, Congressional District 8, joining Jeff and Bill live, talking about the big, beautiful bill that has cleared the Senate, headed back his direction in the House. Now, part of the reason that was the justification for passing the big, beautiful bill was having to bring the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the tax cuts from the previous Trump administration, in perpetuity. So I understand that argument, but can you explain to our audience, Congressman Evans, why the no tax on tips, the no tax on overtime expire? Why are those temporary, but the other tax cuts need to be made permanent? Why aren't they both permanent?
Well, this is the same thing that happened with the TCJA, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, back in 2017 under Trump 1 when those were passed. Those were also temporary tax cuts. And so, as a freshman member, I'm still figuring out how the tax policies actually come about, especially since I don't sit on that committee. But, I think the historical precedent there is oftentimes these tax cuts do start their life as temporary measures, and then you make sure they work the way that you want them to, and that they don't need any tweaking or adjusting. And then, like we're doing right now, we're making a whole host of tax cuts that were temporary back in 2017. We're making them permanent right now. Another one that I didn't talk about is the tax cuts for small businesses. Right now, small businesses and corporations have the same tax rate. Unfortunately, the small business tax rate is temporary, whereas the corporate tax rate is permanent. And so in this bill, we're making the small business tax rate permanent, and we're actually lowering it just a little bit underneath the corporate rate to help our small businesses and make sure that they have a positive environment where they can thrive. And then, of course, that goes back to that earlier comment I made, which is, we're going to see, purchasing power and real wage growth for folks increase, somewhere in the $5,000 to $10,000 range, because our small businesses are going to be able to thrive, turn more money back into their business, because we're not clobbering them with a heightened tax rate.
That's Congressman Gabe Evans. Congressman, I want to go back, but we made the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act permanent because we needed them. They were vitally important. Yet you're telling me the no tax on tips and the no tax on overtime isn't vitally important. If the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, those things were such a benefit to our economy, why are these things temporary? What I'm looking at is, I feel that it is a budgetary gimmick to make sure that the numbers weren't too big during the first Trump administration. That's why they had the expiration date on the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. That's my opinion. And I believe this is also a budgetary trick. Not only that, but also a trick on the voters, because I'm hearing representatives like yourself talk about no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, but it's temporary. That is only partial relief. If it is such a good idea, if it is such a great idea to put that money back into the citizens' pockets here in Colorado, why in the hell aren't they permanent? Why do we have to make the other ones permanent? I don't understand. If it was such a great idea, why are the other tax cuts not a great idea?
That's why we got to pass this bill, is because the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act.
But sir, hang on, you're in charge. I mean, you're there and you get a vote. I mean, the idea, this is like Murkowski yesterday, honestly, and I hate to interrupt you, but this is like Murkowski yesterday saying, well, I hope this isn't the final bill. She just voted for it. She just voted. And now she's like, I hope this isn't the final thing. You, out of everybody in our audience, you are the one person that is involved in this radio station right now that has the most ability to change this. And yet and what I'm hearing from you is I can't make these tax cuts permanent for either tips or overtime. I
think you're putting words in my mouth there. The important thing to highlight here is this is cutting $1.5 trillion in fraud, waste, and abuse out of the federal government. This is making permanent the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act from 2017, under which we saw one of the best economies that we've seen really in the last century. And this is extending those tax cuts to things like no tax on tips, a $6,000 deduction for retired individuals. You can't say the word Social Security in the reconciliation bill. That's one of the Senate's rules about it. So you can't do no tax on Social Security. You have to give a deduction for retired individuals that effectively eliminates, for people making $75,000 or less, their Social Security tax burden. And we're extending all of those things in this bill. And at the same time that we're doing that, we're going to grow the economy so that this thing overall has a deficit-reducing effect. Those are all wins.
Now, Congressman Evans, you just talked about the growth, but you're assuming 3% GDP growth. We haven't reached 3% GDP growth in recent memory. We've got 2 quarters in the last 20 years, I believe, that we've reached 3%. Are you really telling us that we're doing this math based on GDP growth that so far has been unattainable on a regular basis here in America? Or are you just promising the sky, knowing that that's the only way the numbers work? How in the hell are we going to get to 3% GDP growth if we haven't done it before?
You go back and you look, we've been at 3% GDP growth a couple of times over the last several years, definitely not in the last 4 years. But the 1.8% GDP growth,
we only hit it once. We only hit it once under Trump. And previous to that, it's years before. That's the issue. I disagree with the expectation we're going to get to 3%. That's my question. Why are you assuming 3%?
You just said we hit it under Trump because of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act.
Yeah, but 1 quarter. After that quarter, it disappeared and went under 3. So it's only a 1 quarter issue,
wasn't it?
No, okay, that was before.
No,
Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is before it. Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is before that, though. Gabe, it fell before that. That's the issue.
Representative Evans respond.
we know the economy grows when you cut red tape and when you lower taxes, because turns out people want to invest in the United States. They want to build businesses. And when you do all of that stuff, even if the tax rate goes down on people, when the GDP grows, the government actually brings in more revenue, and then that revenue has a deficit-reducing impact at the same time that everybody else gets a better quality of life and lower cost of living, because the economy grows when you cut taxes and you cut all of the red tape that stifles business. You yourself just said it. We saw that under Trump 1. We're going to be able to do it again.
For one, and that's fair, but that's 1 quarter. That's 3 months. You can't say we saw it under Trump in perpetuity. 1 quarter. And it was only because of the sugar rush that happened with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. It fell back to reality afterwards. That's just economics. That's just math.
But I don't understand the alternative, Bill. We just continue with where we're at.
Jeff, the alternative is to use real world numbers. Don't claim GDP growth that hasn't been proven ever with things like this.
What do you mean ever?
It's not proven long term. But then, for 3 months, a 3-month window, because it was a sugar rush. All economists agree on that.
So I'm going to go back to it again. We're just going to continue with what we currently have. I mean, that's
a false dichotomy.
Go ahead.
Since you seem to want a definitive number here, I'm looking at, and this is based on 30 seconds of me on Google, so take it with that grain of salt. But 30 seconds of me on Google here right now, a chart going back to about, looks about like the 1960s to 2020. It's saying 2.9% annual positive change in GDP.
So that would be right there at 3.
But we don't crest over 3. We don't get to 3. Normally it's 2.4 to 2.6. Yeah, but annual. I know annual.
or 2.9 in this case. So the point being, we're going to grow the economy. Is it 3? Is it 3.1? Is it 2.9? We're going to grow the economy here. We've seen this before, and so now there's an element of certainty, because we have 4 more years of these good policies. We have an administration that has the insight of a second-term president, even though, we had 4 years in between to think about what he would do if we had a redo. And so, I think the point that we just made here is the economy is going to grow. Whether it's 2.9, whether it's 3, whether it's 3.1, the economy is going to grow by leaps and bounds above the 1.8%, which is wildly outside of the historical range. We're going to grow far beyond that. And when we grow far beyond that, again, we're going to see lower cost of living, lower taxes, better quality of life, more security. And I think we're going to see a deficit-reducing impact from this piece of legislation.
That's Congressman Gabe Evans. He represents the 8th Congressional District, the northern part of Denver. I want to pivot a little bit. Are you getting any pressure from Elon Musk? We saw he's out there trying to threaten, essentially, Republicans that support this bill with primaries from a third party. My take is that Trump has the influence right now, not necessarily Elon Musk. But are you feeling any heat from Elon?
You know my background, right? I was a cop for 10 years. I was a soldier for 12 years before that. So I've been in high-pressure situations before, and that doesn't really bother me. The number one thing that's on my mind is making sure that we do right by the folks in the 8th Congressional District, and that, again, this is Congress, right? You're never going to get every single thing that you want. That's just a reality. But we get the best possible product to make sure that we fix the problems that are facing people right now, and those problems are Colorado is the second most dangerous state in the country. We've seen some of the highest inflation rates of any of the 50 states in the United States. Everybody knows the cost of living is out of control. These are the issues that we need to fix, and we are going to have a very, very powerful mechanism to do that in this big, beautiful bill.
It's Congressman Gabe Evans. Talk to us a little bit about the process. What are we going to see today? Is it going to be a lot of votes like we saw in the Senate? Is it just one vote? When is that going to happen? Help us understand the procedure here.
Yeah, so this was something that took me a second to wrap my mind around coming out of the state capitol. In the state capitol, you have just standing rules for debate. However, in the federal capitol, for a bill to come to the floor of the U.S. House, there's basically a rules package that's crafted around each particular piece of legislation or each package of legislation that governs the debate. So how long the debate can go, how many amendments are going to be offered on the debate, things like that. It governs the debate on the floor of the House. And so right now what's happening is the Rules Committee, it's a committee of Republicans and Democrats, they meet and they discuss, debate, and argue basically the terms around which the bill will be brought to the floor of the House. So that's the part that we're at right now. Wrapping up on the rules debate, and then the rule itself, again, governing how debate is conducted, the rule itself will be on the floor for approval. Once the rule is approved, then the bill that it's basically packaged around, the bill itself comes to the floor.
So I think what I'll hear is that we will probably get a vote, as you mentioned, later this afternoon on this, and so likely to pass and then to the president's desk by July 4th. Is that the goal?
Yeah, if the House does not make any changes to what the Senate passed, then it goes straight to the president's desk. If both the House and the Senate agree, if there's still disagreement between the House and the Senate, then the negotiation between the two chambers has to continue.
And what are you hearing from Speaker Mike Johnson? Anything directly from him?
We have a 3-vote majority in the U.S. House, and so these things always come down to the wire. But I think you go back and you look, there's been 5 other times before this where a lot of folks doubted whether or not we were going to get something done, and we got it done. So I'm going to continue to be optimistic, and I think, we have to deliver is the short term. Things were so bad the last 4 years. We have got to deliver for the American people, and this is the bill that does it.
That's Congressman Gabe Evans. I know I'm trying to respect your time, and I appreciate you going back and forth with me, Congressman. No hard feelings. This is all just intellectual. I'm going to assume that you are a fiscal conservative, and the question I have about the big, beautiful bill is, would you say this big, beautiful bill is fiscally conservative? Your opinion.
Like we said, $1.5 trillion in fraud, waste, and abuse savings, and then like we just discussed, over the last several decades, a 2.9% average GDP. You put that number into this bill ends up actually being deficit reducing.
But then why are the math people telling us that it's going to increase our deficit by $3 trillion? And Donald Trump's GDP was about 2.1%.
And that would be CB, the Congressional Budget Office.
Yes.
CBO is saying.
Yeah, CBO is saying it's going to increase by about $3 trillion.
Congressman?
Yeah, so two quick thoughts on CBO. Number one, they missed by over $1 trillion the positive economic impacts of the TCJA, Trump Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, back in 2017. So they have a history of missing the mark on a lot of these things. And then number two, I can't remember which media outlet did it, but they did an analysis of the partisan leanings of the CBO. Guess what? It slants pretty heavily toward one particular party.
But it's run by Republicans. I understand the slants as far as the makeup.
CBO is run by Republicans?
No.
The heads are.
No.
Yeah, I think they are.
No.
I think that's pretty affiliation.
That's
fine.
No.
I know.
I don't think it's run by Republicans.
I know. It's a fair critique. But if they came out and said this was going to reduce the deficit by $5 trillion, then we'd be trumpeting that they're the bestest guys in the world. This is more about politics than their actual numbers. Yeah. As soon as you're putting in, this person's political this way, you're not dealing with the numbers. You're trying to impugn the math based on politics.
Go ahead, Congressman.
That's why I led with the numbers, because, they've analyzed lots of bills before, and they have a history of typically missing the positive fiscal impacts of lowering taxes and cutting red tape and overregulation. So that's why I led with the numbers with the 2017 TCJA. They missed. They were under. By $1 trillion.
They were the most accurate based on the impact of Obamacare. So there are times they're incredible. They were the most accurate of all the people analyzing there. So, they're wrong sometimes.
Representative,
they're right sometimes.
Sure appreciate your time today.
Yeah,
you can follow him on X at Rep Gabe Evans. Rep Gabe Evans. Now, I'm just guessing from our discussion today, you are going to be a yes vote, but we'll have to wait and see to get the final vote. Sure appreciate your time today, and the back and forth was a lot of fun. Thank you, Congressman.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Always good to be on with you.
That's Congressman Gabe Evans. Yeah,
I think
my
he'll come
sense
back after
is,
that. I'm not sure.
Of course he'll come back.
I went hard him at that time, but I think it was fair because, again, I'm not impugning him. I'm impugning this big, beautiful bill. I don't believe it's a deficit reducing, deficit reducing. And I understand the idea of 2.9% over the course of our lifetime. But the issue is, if we go back and look at the individual terms, it's vastly different. So saying that because it averages this, we have an average number of snowpack in Colorado, it doesn't mean that our snowpack this year is going to be that way. You don't judge it based on that, but that's okay. That's okay.
I go back to, we're still paying Nancy Pelosi's budget. And I think Republicans are going to support this to get it across the finish line. I mean, this isn't like the last bill that's ever going to be passed. If there's things that need to be changed, they can.
That was another question I didn't get to, because we have added roughly $3 trillion in this budget. What happens next year? Are we just going to continue this budget because the deficit
$3 trillion a year, or is that $3 trillion
it's over the life?
amount
It's
of
over
time?
the life of it. But the issue is, do we think they're not going to pass a budget or do any more spending bills? And the only reason I ask that, and I think it's fair, is, and again, this is a one-time shot, but inside of COVID, the Trump administration pushed for a $2.3 trillion budget authorization. Biden also spent trillions of dollars. I'm not going to throw rocks either way, but what I'm saying is more spending can and usually will happen. Very rarely have I seen a Congress that year to year tries to come back and spend less. There always seems to be more projects to spend on. So I am anticipating that they're not just going to put a close for business sign over the budget side of the office for the next couple of years, that there's going to be more spend. I'm just assuming that, but we'll see what happens.
All right, join the conversation. We'd love to hear from you. 303-696-1971. How do you think Gabe handled some of Bill's questions? You can text us at 720-819-5115, 720-819-5115. At the end of the day, in my mind, this just comes down to whether or not you tax your way out of your debt or you grow your way out of your debt. And that's the crux of this debate. So, feel free to tell me that taxes is what we need to actually do to get out of this debt, or that we need to grow out of it. We need a tax cut. 303-696-1971. Text us at 720-819-5115. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. True to form, we've got text messages that, Bill, you were too tough on Gabe, and you were acting uncivilly. And then I have text messages that said, Bill, you were gracious, consistent in your conviction.
Yeah, here's the thing that the crazy part is that
the world I live in.
That if these people, if we would flip the party affiliation of Gabe, and he was a Democrat, and I behaved the same way, I have a feeling that many of those text messages, their feeling about the conversation would be completely and totally different. Completely different. But that's fair. That's okay. And I appreciate everybody listening and texting.
All right, we have breaking news coming through on the Puff Daddy. Diddy
trial. The verdicts are in.
Verdicts are in. He escapes most serious charges. The jury in the Sean Diddy Combs, this is from Fox News, reporting that the sex trafficking and racketeering trials reached a verdict on all accounts on Wednesday. The jury found Diddy not guilty of racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking. He was found guilty on the transportation to engage in prostitution.
Wow. That's quite a win for his defense, in my opinion, because some of those charges seem to be linked well, and the state, the government had spent a lot of time and effort on putting together this case. And if I was part of the prosecution team, I would be having a lot of difficult post-mortem conversations today, because the transportation's the easy one, because that's self-evident. The idea that he found escorts in other states and flew them to another state, that's pretty cut and dry. And so they had to make the case for the rest of them. And this tells me that however the prosecution laid out their case, it was not believable and didn't convince anybody, because the only one they got was the short putt out of all of them. They missed their chip shots. They missed their drives. That's a mess. The prosecution team failed on this one because they brought a big, big case, spent a lot of time, a lot of effort, and the only one you get is that transportation charge, which is probably, I don't know the sentencing, but my guess is that's on the lower end of all the sentencing available for all the charges. That's probably the one that he's going to spend the least amount of time, if at all, in prison.
I was going to say, do you think he goes to prison longer?
I don't know what the sentencing guidelines are.
Transportation to engage.
Yeah, I don't know what the sentencing guidelines
are. Could carry a sentence of up to 10 years.
Yeah, up to, but there's no so there's no minimum. So you could do just time served. So, or he could just get, time served and this many years of probation. It depends on what mood the judge is in and how the judge views the case as well. But yeah, I mean, Diddy, the money he spent on his defense, and the lack, that's what surprised me too, is the lack of defense that he put up inside of the court. But evidently, again, that's why he has the big high-priced lawyers, and I am not a big high-priced lawyer. No idea what I'm doing on that end. No clue. But yeah, it evidently worked. Wow.
Text messages coming in about Gabe Evans' conversation. Jason in Denver saying, we can't grow our way out of a $40 trillion debt. Yes, I think there needs to be cut to spending as well.
Can we? But the other part is this. Can we cut our way out of a $40 trillion debt?
Where's taxes ever helped anything grow?
But revenue increases do help you get out of debt. I mean, if you have, again, I go back to businesses. We talk about running the country like a business. If you have a business and you're in debt and you're losing money on it, you have two courses of action. And most of the time you do both of them. And that is increase revenue while also cutting spend. And so that's it. So, and what we're doing here, though, is we seem to be wanting to decrease what we're spending, but we're not really working on raising revenue. And as we've seen from this bill, we are still deficit spending. We are still spending more than we are taking in. And the one thing that we're not talking about is how to take in more.
On this one.
There's no reason not to, but that's okay. I mean, I understand the objections based on politics, but there's no reason not to.
Well, have they been right about previous?
Who's been more accurate? I mean, again, because I can go to the Wharton School of Business where Trump graduated from, and they say it's going to add $3 trillion. They agree with the CBO, and that's where Trump graduated from in his business school. So it's not as if the CBO is out on an island by themselves. Most major economists and studies that I've seen agree around that number. So I think it is accurate enough to play with. So that's the issue. So, and that's the problem I've got, is the idea of...
What's the issue?
The issue is that we are sitting here saying, oh, this is horrible debt, this is horrible deficit, and then we go around and we continue to deficit spend. And the one thing that we seem to be averse to is raise revenue. Okay,
yeah, because theft.
It's raising revenue. So if we don't want to, that's fine. It's not
raising
theft.
revenue.
But see, Jeff,
yes,
it's not,
taxation is theft.
No, it's not theft at all.
100%.
It's not theft. Then how would
really?
So would you?
We willingly give this up? We're so happy. Here's our money.
Okay, the question I have then, if taxation is simply just theft, what's your alternative solution? How do you raise money and how do you function in the government? No, not less. You said it's all theft, so we don't want any theft. So what's your alternative solution?
Be great.
I know, but what's your alternative solution?
To what?
How do we keep the police departments running? How do we keep the fire departments running? How do we pay for defense? How do we keep the lights on? What is the solution then to raise money for those?
I think you could privatize a lot of that.
How would you privatize the police department?
Why not?
No, but how?
You could pay for police? I mean, you wouldn't pay for police?
Oh, so I need a monthly subscription. So the idea
why not?
Okay, so if
so what's wrong with that?
So the person next to me, if their subscription expires, they don't get any help. If their house is on fire, the fire department doesn't show up, and then my house catches on fire, and then we have a fire department.
You
but
could
they
pay.
just watch. I know, but they just watch the house burn down. Is that
really?
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around that statement.
If you don't pay for police, the police don't show up?
Yeah. That's a really
You have
weird,
a hard time wrapping your mind around that?
I really do. Because of the idea of a social contract. It seems like you want to invalidate the entire existence of the social contract and what a community means. Yeah, because that's why we set up.
But we are. If you don't pay for your television, your television doesn't turn on.
No, but we are, Jeff. We are paying for it in the form of taxes. We're paying for,
and we force people to do that.
But then who stops the speeders? Can I just speed then?
No, you could pay for it.
No, how?
Why?
Who pays for it?
What?
Who pays?
Why
are you going to pay?
Why are
what I'm
you
asking you for?
so driven into this idea that we have to force everybody to collectively pay for things?
No, what I'm asking
when we have so many aspects of our lives where we don't do that, and things just work just fine.
I disagree that they work just fine, but the idea that who's going to stop who's going to stop the speeders? Who goes out there if you don't pay? So
I can't. I will. The police will. Police will stop the speeders because we pay for them.
No.
It's like
they're
saying,
paying. Jeff,
could you imagine if we didn't, if like with cell phones, everybody has a cell phone. Everybody has a cell phone.
No, not everybody does.
And we do not force people to pay the government to provide it.
It
works just fine that way.
No. Everybody doesn't have a cell phone, but a cell phone is different than police. So what you're telling me is, so if you're sitting next to me, if you're living next to me and you pay for police and I don't, do I then get the benefit of you paying for the police to stop the speeders and everybody else in the crime? So I just get the benefit without paying for it. That doesn't seem fair, does it? And again, you're also paying to stop the speeders on roads you never drive on. Why the hell do you care if anybody speeds down Colorado Boulevard? You're never on Colorado Boulevard. So why do you have to pay for that?
The people around there, the businesses around there could pay for it.
But you don't have to. So you're only going to, but what speeders do you pay for then? Who's going to pay?
So you think it's a better system where I live out in Elbert County and pay for the police off of Colorado Boulevard?
Why would a business on Colorado Boulevard pay to stop speeders? How does that impact their business? Why would they pay for that? Ever?
I think that's easy. I think that's self-explanatory.
No, why? Why would you? It's speeding.
Safety.
But safety for what? How does it impact their business? Someone speeding by their business or anything else.
Go ask the 16th Street Mall how safety impacts their business.
No. I'm talking about speeders impacting the safety.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. There's no one speeding. No one's speeding down 16th Street Mall. No one's there. It's a pedestrian mall.
But I'm pointing out how lack of safety impacts a business.
But that's crime, not necessarily the same thing as speeding. That's something where someone goes by. That's not the same thing. That's not. No, when we're talking about personal property crime, we're talking about violence. We're talking about personal property crime. What we're talking about safety downtown. The issue downtown, people aren't not going to 16th Street Mall because they're speeding. That's not the issue. It's because of violence and personal property crime. The speeding is not a personal property crime. Why would the business be incentivized to stop someone who's speeding by their business for 2 seconds? They're gone afterwards. There's no necessary impact.
I think I think you are locked into this world where we have to, at the point of a gun, take other people's money in order to provide public services. And if we don't do it, there's just no alternative to provide those public services.
I believe in a basic social contract that we've agreed there are certain services and benefits for shared risk and for shared payments. Some of that is things like fire departments, things like police departments, defense, those things, and also some utilities. I disagree with some of the function and what we've done with some of the utilities. But look at how when we privatized, we've gone outside of the grid. It's not worked out so well in Texas.
What
They've set up their own.
happens when you nationalize?
It's worked out fairly well for our grid because it can hold.
Venezuelans nationalized oil industry is doing great.
I'm talking about our energy. I'm talking about our energy providing here. I'm not talking about nationalizing the industry. Nationalizing an oil industry is different than having a national electrical
But how are we
going
to get gas in our cars if we don't nationalize
No, that's different. That is different. A oil company is different than the police department. Those are completely and totally different as far as.
I think they're just as important.
It's not an issue of importance and an issue of function. It's an issue of how they function and what they do. Completely.
I'm just amazed that we can't imagine a world without government.
I'm amazed. So you're in favor of anarchy?
Why would you jump to that?
Because that's without government.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
Do you have government in your home?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Yes, there's a governmental system. My wife and I make the rules, and then we have constituents that complain all the time. All the protests and all the complaints. Yes, there is a system in the house. Yes.
Right.
We don't. Yes. It's not an anarcho commune.
I didn't call for anarchy.
Yeah,
I just said you
no
didn't
government.
need the government
you
in every aspect of your life.
You said no government.
And you jumped to anarchy.
No. You said no government. You want to imagine a society with no government. It's anarchy. That's what that is.
No, it's not.
Then what is it? What is a society with no government?
You're equating.
Where is it?
You're equating any form of structure with government.
Where is it? That's social contract. But where is it? Where is the society that has been created that has no government? Where is that?
Who elected you?
Oh, but people don't have to be elected to form a government.
Right.
Ask
All right,
Putin.
we're just debating around
Putin.
stuff right now.
I know, but in your house, you have a government in your house. It's a dictatorial government. Yes, you rule by edict.
Your
kids don't get to vote on things, and you make the decisions.
Any form of structure with government.
No, you
right?
are.
So
you
business
are.
is a government then?
No, you were
because
asking
it
about
has structure?
No, you were asking about the government in your home, and I'm saying you make the rules, etc. And yes, there are governing rules inside of a business.
So a business is a government.
No, not that way. But guess what? But businesses aren't run without rules.
I didn't say I didn't want rules.
Yes, you did. You said no government. What do we do then? Who decides the rules? If we have no governmental system, nobody in place that is a communal way that we discuss what the rules are and how we're going to govern each other. What are the society's expectations?
You're conflating terms here.
No,
you're jumping because I said we don't need to have high taxes all the time.
No, a minute ago you said no government.
Yeah, taxation is theft.
But a minute ago you said no government.
And you can live, and there's plenty of examples of you having other aspects of your life that don't have this forced government payment intrusion system that work just fine. They do great. And no one forces you to pull your money, for instance, to buy gasoline, to buy cell phone services. You have all these free market things that work just great. And we don't have to have forced taxation to deliver these services all the time. All right, we're way over time. We got to get it. You're welcome to join the conversation, 303-696-1971, or text us at 720-819-5115. And boy, the text messages are all over the place. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to Jeff and Bill. There's times where our show just descends into Jeff and Bill sitting at a bar debating whether or not you could just live. Do you have to tax everything in order to provide those services? I'm just saying, imagine a world without it. Could you do it? And apparently, I'm allowing neighbors' houses to burn down.
Well, if they don't pay their bills for the fire department, yes.
Yeah.
Stand there and grab the s'mores, which is an interesting prospect. It's an interesting way to run the society.
But, I mean, we don't pool our money to pay the electric bills. So the argument would be if they don't pay their electric bills, their house has no power.
But actually, we do because the electric company, it's based on shared spend. And so the electric company does that based on the average use. They do charge you on individual use, but they set their rates based on the average. Same thing with insurance.
So
insurance is shared risk.
Fire could do that as well. My point being...
Fire can't do that, but
why not?
That's okay. Because I disagree with the idea that you have to pay a bill monthly in order to make sure the fire department shows up. Because then they can hold you hostage based on rates and everything else. And the other part is, imagine if you had, and then you get into several different competing police departments, several different competing fire departments, and eventually what you end up with is big giant privatizations of corporate cities. That's where this spins out into, and corporations having their own armies. That's what it is. If we want to go to not have a USA army, but have the IBM army, the Apple army, everything else, and Apple can then come and invade your neighborhood, that's where this goes. That's just where it goes. I know.
I love you.
But that's where that goes.
Apple armies?
Yeah, because that's where it goes because you're going to need to have defense. And if you don't have a shared national defense,
they already have their own paid security, don't they?
No, I'm talking about actual army. I mean, again, this is a dystopian. Where does this thing go? Because I've read these books, I've seen these movies, and this is the timeline, and that's where that goes into it. It doesn't go to us just all of a sudden sitting around and No, it's privatization, and it gets really ugly, and it becomes very feudal.
The only reason I raise this question is because there's so many other aspects of our lives where we don't do this. Very important aspects of our lives where we don't pool our money at the point of a gun via taxes, and those things turn out to work just fine. So, we'll continue. 9 o'clock hour. We're going to be joined by Brandy Bradley, state representative who wants to be the new whip for the Republicans down there. The Republican whip, not a whip for Republicans. She's going to whip the other Republicans. She's going to join us in the 9 o'clock hour and make her case for that role. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is 710 KNUS.